All right, welcome to starting with today's The Shape Up. And I'm so excited about this one because we're doing a live Q&A called Ask a Black Therapist, where we're talking to Tariq Walton, who's a licensed Black marriage and family therapist in the DMV. And so we're excited to be reunited with him. We miss him live in person at Lee's Barbershop. And then to get your questions, if you've never been to therapy before, here's your chance to ask your question, to see what it's like, to get a feel for it. And we are excited to get started soon. So here's Tariq. All right. Yay. Hey!
There it goes. Okay.
I know. It's just one of them technical difficulties kind of day. It happens.
But we're here. We're here now.
We're here.
Man, your lighting looks great, man. I gotta work on my lighting.
Thank you.
See what I can do around here.
I finally got a $15 ring light.
I gotta invest.
It has
Man.
been the best investment, especially my house is full of lights and daylight, and so I get shadows, especially during the day. So,
Okay.
Hey Tariq, how are you? It's been a minute.
Miss Anderson, what's up? I know. What's going on with you?
You all dressed up. I didn't know we dressing up for it. You know what I'm saying?
I'm at work. You can see I'm in the office, so it's after a long day of work.
In our black tees and
Yeah, I know, but our brother's working at the office, so he's live on camera all day long, and gotta show up right. Gotta have the collar on. Gotta have the collar popping.
Well,
what's been going on?
To everyone who is new to starting with today, to the Shape Up, we are a program that's part of starting with today. The Shape Up is part of starting with today. And what we do is bring Black therapists and professionals to the Black barbershop. And that typically happens at Lee's Barbershop in Southeast with Dr. Lee. And so now, of course, we're virtual and following CDC guidelines and hoping that our family and communities are being safe as well. And then, continuing to lift up everyone who is, still struggling through this pandemic and, trying to find their way through like we all are. So we have the honorable
Oh, you flatter me so.
Tariq Walton, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist here in the DMV area. He's been with us since day one with the Shape Up since May 2018.
Almost 3 years.
That's insane. And this is about like when we first met around this time 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Like this is about when it happened. And
because I think it was April when we did that seminar.
Yes.
Yep.
And then things just kind of kept rolling from there.
Rolled, right.
So much for seeing the vision early on. I didn't have to coax or convince or, wring your arms.
I was down. As soon as I heard the idea, I'm like, yo, I'm down. Put me deep.
You were the perfect person. So thank you so much. We've done so many events since then. If you haven't been able to check them out, there's some that's on YouTube. You can get glimpses of our IGTV. So we've done recaps of different ones we've done. We also have the Shape Up podcast that's on SoundCloud, it's on Spotify, it's on iTunes, it's on your favorite place, and you can find that and you can catch up to what we've been talking about, from everything from intergenerational trauma to the effects of racism to emotional health and literacy. So there's been a lot. So Tariq, you got anything else that I missed you want to share?
No, I mean, it's all mental health and wellness related. We want to make sure that the brothers in the barbershop are getting a good idea of how they can approach life differently, approach life a little bit better, and just recognize some of the hurdles to having healthy relationships and actually overall a healthy lifestyle.
Absolutely. I think one of the beautiful things, the Shape Up is definitely designed for Black men, but Lee's Barbershop is a unisex barbershop. We get the entire community. It's intergenerational.
The entire community. Oh, yeah.
Something that I think millennials miss, especially that are transients in this community. So just to have that knowledge, from older and then being able to hear younger perspectives as well is always a blessing that I think we need to, just kind of take in as well.
Right.
All right. So we'll get to it. I got a few questions. And if you're here and you want to ask a question, you can drop it in the Q&A. So it won't be as anonymous as those who submitted it before. But if you put it in the Q&A, when we actually broadcast the live, it won't have like your name and stuff on there. So that'll make it easy if you do Q&A. That way we won't have to kind of read through the thread. But thank you all for showing up. And so we'll get started in very random order. So I did not organize them at all. The first one is, and I'm reading verbatim, I'm burnt out. What do I do?
That's the question. I thought you were saying you're burnt out. Oh man, poor thing.
I'm fine. Thank God I'm on the other side of the burnt outness, but I've been there, but that's not my question.
Right. Okay, so that's the first question. I'm burnt out. What do I do? I think the first thing you need to do is figure out what's burning you out. You know, if you're feeling burnt out right now, what's going on with you? What have you been up to that's actually making you feel that way? And try and figure out, okay, what can I do differently? You know, before you really begin to do something, you know, something mental health related, you have to kind of reflect on what your experience has been that's leading you to feeling burnt out. So address that first and see if there's anything at all that you can do to change that circumstance so you're not feeling burnt out. Maybe you're working too much. Maybe you're overextending yourself with family. Maybe you're just feeling the overall effects of what COVID has done, the pandemic and everything. Maybe it's a combination of all those things. But what things do you actually have control over? And those things you have control over, do something about. Maybe pull back a little bit, spend a little bit less time working if you can. Learn to say no, create some healthy boundaries with your friends and your families so that you don't feel so obligated to do absolutely everything that they ask. Pull back a little bit. And in those areas where you can't control and you actually have to do these things, go ahead and do them. But if you're still feeling burnt out, that's when you have to figure out, okay, how can I cope better? What other things can I do outside of the things I'm already made to do that will allow me to kind of de-stress, just feel good for a little while, not feel like I'm working, and just find a way to enjoy yourself. So whether it's hobbies, whether it's reading a book, whether it's sitting back just kicking it, watching TV, look, you need to rest. Yeah. We all need to rest, and that's one thing I've learned. You need to find some time to really just disconnect from things, from your telephone, from IG, from the entire world, and just find time to rest. I think a lot of people get caught up in this idea that, if I'm not doing something, I'm not being productive. No, even when you're resting, you're doing something. Being productive is even resting and realizing that I need to recoup so that I have the energy to do everything else that I need to do. And so even just finding that rest is really being productive. So just take some time to chill on your own.
That's a really good perspective shifting, that rest is productive, right? And that is something I'm just beginning to wrestle with, especially as a social. I feel this guilt when I'm resting. Like it's always something else to do. I feel guilt when I need time to myself. I feel guilt so I've been trying to communicate that better, even if it's just to myself, like, Charlene, you need to sit down somewhere, and you need, 2 hours. You need, to get some fresh air, to go outside for 30 minutes. Like those things, I think, has really helped me get over the hump of, the worst of this. Hopefully, the worst of this.
Well, the thing about that too is you always have something to do, whether it's work or family or friends. There's always going to be something to do.
True.
And people will always ask. People will always take as long as you allow them to. That's why you have to have healthy boundaries. Now, what's going to happen when you have nothing left to give, when your body just breaks down?
Absolutely.
And now you're stuck in bed for the next 2 months because you have nothing. You have nothing in you. Yeah. No, people's lives will go on without you. No, they don't need you. You're convenient. And not saying that people are using you necessarily,
right,
but they're going to take as much as they can from you in order to make things easier on themselves. So you can pull back from them, and trust me, they'll be all right. Trust that they will be all right.
That's really great advice. The next question is, what do I do if a loved one refuses to go to therapy? It actually said partner. The original question was partner, but I just made it loved one just because I felt like it was applicable to, many different, situations.
Oh, so now you're changing people's questions? Is that what you're doing? You're interfering with the question asking? Either way, there's really nothing you can do. People have to want to go to therapy. I've dealt with people who feel like they've been forced into it. because of work-related stuff or, family,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not very productive.
Yeah.
Therapy is something you have to want to do. It's like going to the gym and working out. If you don't want to do it, you're not going to do it. It's not going to be productive. It's going to be really a waste of time, a waste of money, a waste of resources.
Wow.
So there's nothing you can really do for anybody who doesn't want to go to therapy. You can encourage them,
Right.
and you can have them talk to other people who've actually experienced what therapy is and help them to get a different perspective on why it would be healthy to go. But you can't force anybody to go, not if they don't want to.
And that is that's a hard pill for some people to swallow. I think sometimes you feel like you can coerce people, but you're right. It's not going to be productive.
Yeah, it's not under your control. Trust me.
But you can still go to therapy. I think people should still go to therapy for themselves, and then they can learn how to better, create those boundaries to, advocate for themselves. I think there's so much power in just learning what you can control versus trying to
Right.
control, other people.
Right. I will say this, a great door to getting your partner specifically into therapy is couples therapy.
Mm.
Oftentimes people won't do it. I mean, I can't tell you how many men I'm seeing individually now who actually started off in couples therapy.
Wow.
Who were kind of turned off to the idea of doing therapy in the first place. And so they sat down and said, okay, this really isn't that bad. I do have a chance to actually get some stuff off my chest. I'm recognizing the things that I need to change. But that couples therapy is a great door to getting people to actually, think about and consider individual therapy.
That's really great. And I think that's a great segue to this question. It says, well, before we go, we have some new people in the room. If you have a question for Tariq, a licensed marriage family therapist, drop it in the Q&A. We're taking questions. And it's hard to kind of go back through the thread. So if you leave it in Q&A, we'll be sure to answer it. And then we'll get to it. So, and we have one comment says, life may bring them to the point that it's a safe space. And that's really true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how do I know when I need to go to therapy?
If you're already asking that question, it's time for you to go. Let me just say, if you're at a point where you're wondering if you need to go to therapy, it's beyond the point that you need to go. Yeah, I mean, if you're even asking the question, if there's anything that seems like you just can't get a handle on, and you have questions about that you can't figure out for yourself, it's maybe a good time to go to therapy. Therapy isn't just about having major mental health disorders. It can be stresses that you're having a hard time dealing with, grief you're having a hard time getting over. It could be any number of things. But oftentimes, I think we kind of just keep things bottled up and think, okay, we can just handle it. But there may be things you just really can't handle, things you can't figure out for yourself. And that's a good time to just sit down with a therapist and kind of work through it, go through the process of finding out what these things are and why they're affecting you so deeply, and figuring out a way, how can I actually let some of this stuff go or process it in a way that is not affecting the other parts of my life that are keeping me kind of stuck.
That's a really good point, because when I am not in a good place, every aspect of my life is stressed, and it feels that way. So that's such a great point. And one of the comments,
so feel like they don't want people in their business. Yep.
yeah,
I mean, which is very true.
Totally understand that. I can totally understand that. And maybe you can speak to that a little bit more about the the confidentiality that comes with therapy.
Yes, we are bound by HIPAA laws and regulations that everything that you say within these walls are confidential. So we can't talk to anybody else. We're not going to talk to your family members. This is indeed a safe space, as she mentioned earlier. Having a safe space just to talk and not feel like you're going to be judged. That's a major thing about therapists. We're not here to judge you. We're here to help you and help you see, more clearly what's going on with you. It's a judgment-free zone. And so you want to make sure that you find somebody that you feel comfortable with and know that it's a safe space. That's the big thing. This is a safe space for you. And besides for that, we can't talk about what happens in here because, we'll lose our license. So
absolutely.
I'm not losing my license to tell you and talk about your life. Trust me.
I think that's a great point. And one of the things you mentioned about finding someone that is a good fit, and that's like so important. And one of the reasons why we started the Shape Up, right? So to really connect culturally competent, culturally relevant professionals to our community and how important that is. It's the factor of trust, right? So there's
Right.
trust in that familiarity where you're not starting with no frame of reference with someone. And then two, there is this factor of you having similar experiences, right? So I don't have to, worry about you understanding the weight of racism, the weight of health inequities, and how that begins to affect our lives. And so I think that's really important. And one of the things I did when I was looking for therapists, I've had several over my life. I'm very vocal about that. The one I have now is Godson, a Black woman.
Nice.
I would love to shout her out, but I can't. But she's amazing. She's amazing.
Right.
But one of the things that I did was go through the list of providers that were available within my network, my healthcare network, or through EAP. EAP is a employee assistance program. A lot of companies have them that are available, especially now in the pandemic, where you get, typically 4 to 10 sessions depending on the company that they'll compensate for. And you just call the number and they have a list. And what I do is I Google. So I look for, names. I look up and see if I can find pictures, and see if I can find like someone that I feel like they could relate. And then also Psychology Today .org or com. .com. They list the specialties of the provider as well, which is really good. So if you're going through something like grief, you don't necessarily need, someone that specializes, I don't know, in adolescence. It might be, some specialties there. So you want to make sure that you connect with someone who has experience in especially dealing with, especially if it's a acute issue, that you can get the assistance that you need.
Right. True.
All right. So again, if you have questions, leave them in there. I think I saw one. As a follow-up to that, how should a person go about finding the right therapist? Okay, thank you, Vernon. We answered that. Your question. We'll be on the same page. Thanks for joining, everyone. All right. So I felt a little. How do you define toxic behavior?
Ooh, toxic behavior. Toxic behavior is anything where, well, man, my mind just went like 7 different directions. It's like, man, it's so broad. But toxic behaviors are things that will typically create, these very unwelcome feelings with someone else within a relationship. And so if there are behaviors that you're doing that are contributing to someone else's stress, someone else's anxiety, or it's just hurtful. You may not even may not even be doing it intentionally.
Right.
But things that you're doing that's contributing to someone else's well-being not being taken care of, that's toxic behavior. And so it's kind of like looking at the people around you and seeing what effect you're having on them, even your kids. You see your kids and you see their behaviors and you want to sit there and yell at them for all the things they're doing. Well, how are you contributing to their behavior? What are they seeing from you that's, has them behaving in a particular way? When you look at the way that you connect with your significant other, or if the connection is lacking, that bond is lacking because of feelings they have about things that you do, you may want to sit back and, consider that some of that behavior that you're showing may be toxic. Toxic, when you just think of the term toxic, it's something that's poisonous, and so when you think about, they mentioned toxic masculinity. Right. Well, that's the kind of behavior or thinking or beliefs that contribute to an ill, interaction or ill society. Right. It's something that's really contributing to maintaining stereotypes or just discomfort or pain in somebody else.
That's really good. I think we're in a culture now where we hear it so much, and it's kind of like, oh, that should be obvious, but not necessarily, right? And I think one of the things about what that can look like Um, I'll give you an example. So I had a friend. I was like, "Yo, I miss you. No need to respond. Yada yada." 2 days later, I see it on Twitter with like a future meme, and like, damn, I'm toxic, like, or could be at the point where it's like, okay, am I being manipulative in this situation? Am I like trying to control this situation? I don't think it's necessarily like all the time trying to cuss people out or or being berating, but I think manipulation is definitely power playing, and it can show many different ways.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. Even we've talked before in the barbershop talks in the shape up about emotional regulation, and not recognizing that your outbursts, contribute to a toxic atmosphere or toxic relationship. Your inability to control your impulses or to control your attitude, those contribute to a toxic atmosphere as well. And so I think it's those things that really can be perceived as being, overblown or even minimizing. When you're minimizing people and their accomplishments and the things that they're doing, can be considered toxic. So there's so many different ways to look at it. But it's really, again, how are you contributing to the discomfort and the pain and the hurt of other people?
So Tariq, what's the flip side of that, right? And so we know it's like maybe
love, man, love. Gotta love people. Love them. Stop hurting folks. Give them love, peace. But I mean, truly.
Too. I think I don't think it's necessarily a default for everyone.
I have one of the questions I ask a lot of my clients, who are going through rough patches in their relationship is, how did you demonstrate care to your mate this week?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Right? How did you actually demonstrate care? That's the opposite of toxic. If toxic is hurting people and causing their discomfort and their pain, well, care, making an effort, being intentional about that effort, being consistent in the effort that you're making, that contributes to actually, detoxifying things. So if you have a toxic relationship, by demonstrating care to that person, you help to, detoxify what's going on. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you, yes.
Okay, one of my earbuds just went out.
No, I hear you clearly.
Okay.
But that makes me think about a point that two people mentioned in the actual shape of one, Dr. Lee, right? And he's so full of gems. One of the things he said that he did that was a major improvement was that he began checking in every couple of weeks to see, how are things? Is there anything I can do better? Am I
right?
Like that check in that is routine, but so important, especially as we grow and evolve as people. We in different stages, definitely in this pandemic, your needs before the pandemic may be different during and definitely after the pandemic. So I think that's a really great point to just ask, how did you demonstrate care? I think that's a great thing to do for ourselves too, if you are, for part of your self-care as well. Like how do you show care to yourself as well?
True.
And I think the other thing that stood out, it was a gentleman there who said that one of the things he does with his wife was ask, do you want my opinion on what to do, or do you just want to vent? Like just kind of getting that.
You want me just to listen? Right.
Yeah, getting that clarity of, per situation. Like it's not necessarily meaning for you to, completely intervene.
Yeah, I get that with clients a lot too, where, a person's complaint will be like, I don't need you to always problem solve. I don't need you to figure things out for me. I just want you to listen. I want to be heard. It's not about coming in and because a lot of times that feels like judgment to people. Feel like they're being judged. Yeah, when you're going in there and someone's telling you what's going on with them and you're telling them all the different things you think they should do, that feels like judgment. It feels like I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just telling you what's bothering me. I'm not saying I need you to do anything about it. I just want you to hear me. I just want to be able to express this, get it off my chest, and have somebody hear it. Not that you have to do anything about it. But I think a lot of people, I talk to especially with men, they'll say, well, I don't really talk about my emotions. I don't talk about what's going on because, if it's not getting done, why complain about it? Well,
Mm,
talking about what's going on with you is not about complaining. It's just getting it off your chest. It's getting off your shoulders so you can move on to something else. It's not necessarily that everything has to get done, not right now,
right.
but just being able to express what's happening with you, number one, helps the other people understand you a whole lot better.
Mm,
That's the main thing about it. You want to be understood. And secondly, you're just able to release some of the stuff,
yeah.
you know?
And that's so important to the mental health, and having a safe space again to in your partnerships, in your family, in your friendships, to be able to express yourself without that judgment, for sure.
Right, right, for sure.
Okay, so
Yep.
this is the last one I have. Again, if you have questions, drop it in the question or on the thread, and we'll get to it.
Come on,
How
y'all. More questions, more questions, more questions.
how do you reset after feeling stuck?
How do you reset after feeling stuck?
Correct.
Well, first get unstuck. It's kind of hard to even reset if you're still stuck. So first you got to get yourself unstuck. So what's going on that you're stuck in the first place? What's happening that you have no movement, that you're not progressing? So you first have to get that out of the way so you can begin to move again. And then from there, you're able to figure out, okay, what do I do next? I think it's a lot easier to figure it out once you get unstuck. A lot of people, I think, are very reflective. A lot of people don't really think about, let me just say, a lot of people don't have the luxury of being reflective. A lot of people have lives that are very, very demanding and are always being pulled forward to do something. But even in doing something, they don't feel like they're moving. It could be, with your career, and yeah, you're going to work every day, but are you progressing in your career? Yeah, you may be in a relationship, but is your relationship growing? So you may be doing a lot of stuff, but it's not really progressing. And so if you want things to progress, you have to figure out, okay, what's keeping you stuck? What's holding you back? And that takes time to just sit back and reflect on, okay, let me stop, let me think about what's going on around me that has me not moving. And
Mm.
so is it again, like if it's about your relationship, if you're stuck in neutral in your relationship, is because you're not putting any effort forward?
Ooh.
Is it because you're not actually catering to your mate's love language? Is it that, you aren't really sure about where you want the relationship to go? Or are you not being honest that you don't want the relationship to go anywhere? And the person's a placeholder. It takes really being reflective and seeing your situation for what it really is. But once you can do that, once you can recognize what's got you stuck, and you're able to adjust it in a way that you can move forward, that you can get unstuck. Now, how you reset is right there in front of you. You have a whole new path forward because whatever was blocking your way before is gone. So now you have the path to do whatever you want to do. So it's not really so much about resetting after you become unstuck. Once you're unstuck, you are automatically reset.
That's really good. And I think you brought up a lot of great points about, having the luxury to reset. And we talk a lot about it in our communities that there is very little time for self-care, for reflection, for, finding rest. Like, you have to be super intentional because there's so many different weights that are happening at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so understanding that, but still, being intentional. And even if it's 5 minutes, in the shower, in between, while you're on the train or bus, and trying to find that time to like sit still and write down your thoughts. We talk about journaling and meditation,
Mm-hmm.
the practices, and just really trying to find those practices to find your grounding. So if you do get off track, then you know how that feels. I think a lot of people don't even know what their optimum healthy self feels like, because it's been either so long or they never really experienced it. It's always been these trauma responses. So I feel like there's the power in even knowing what feels good for you in the moment.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as somebody who's notorious for not taking vacations until recently, um, it wasn't until I began doing that and taking that time off and just getting away from everything that I realized how stuck I was and how exhausted I was. I figured this is just, hey, this is how life goes. But then when you have a chance to kind of get away from everything It doesn't have to be long. It could be just a couple of days, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. But it's just a matter of unplugging. Again, unplugging from everything that you're doing and giving yourself a chance to kind of, like I said, get unstuck. And then you will reset because your mind is clear. You're feeling better. You're feeling lighter, and now you can go ahead and do whatever else is necessary. Or even if that means continuing on the path that you were already on, but without the exhaustion.
So true.
You know.
So true. And I
And
feel
then
like,
intentionality.
I'm sorry. And I feel like the same thing. And I feel like now I'm being proactive with my rest and like putting it in my schedule, which I didn't do before. And so like I have a couple days towards the end of next month that like it's the 5-day block. Like I'm just unavailable, you know. And then like I'm scheduling rest blocks into my week, even if it's 20 or 30 minutes or an hour. Like I'm completely shutting down to make sure I'm having some clarity. Just mental clarity is really important.
Look, even on a daily basis, I have my alarm set to go off at 10 minutes to 11 every morning to remind myself to breathe.
Wow.
Every single day, 7 days a week, 10 minutes to 11, my watch will vibrate or something, and I'm like, oh, time to breathe. And I just take a moment to breathe. It doesn't have to be very long. It could just be a couple breaths. But just a reminder, take a couple of deep breaths and just kind of decompress and relax every single day. And it genuinely helps you to feel at least better in that moment.
Yeah.
And the more moments you put together like that, the better you're going to feel.
That's so true. And I do the same thing. I have meditation on my calendar every day. You know, now I don't really have to think about it, but it's still there just in case, you know, I need that reminder.
Right.
And so, yeah, and every day is not a 20-minute meditation. Sometimes it's 5 minutes.
Right.
Sometimes it's 2 or 3 minutes.
Right.
Depends on what's happening, or it's just a quick journal. So I think finding those methods is really important. Another thing you mentioned that I hadn't really considered about relationships and growth, like how do you know if your relationship is growing? If they're like, especially like if you're already married, if marriage is your goal and you're married, how do you know you're still growing and evolving as a couple? And I think it's kind of, and maybe it's the same thing if you're not married, you committed, and like what does growth begins to look like?
I think it's about experiences. You know, what kind of experiences are you having together? You know, if you're having the same experiences every single day, you're not growing. You know, it's about.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, you have to have variety. You have to have a variety in the things that you're doing. You know, if your same relational pattern is to go to work, come home, have dinner, watch 2 hours of TV, go to bed, get up and go to work, yeah, you're pretty stuck. Okay. You know, and I know with COVID, I know with the pandemic, you know, we haven't been able to go out and do many different things. But even at home, there are different things you can do. Turn off the TV, play some games, you know, go for a walk, do Zoom calls with your friends, you know, cook together. I mean, there are a ton of different date ideas you can do with your mate to make sure that you are having enriching experiences all the time. If you're doing the same stuff, yeah, you're definitely not going to grow. You know, think about how you grow on your own. You know, what contributes to your growth? It's experiences. It's the same thing with your relationships. You have to have new and different experiences all the time. You know, if you're going to the same restaurant all the time, you're not growing. You're not stretching yourself. You know, so you have to try different things. And that's a big thing. But going back to something else you were saying too, intentionality is absolutely everything. I mean, you have to be very intentional in what you're doing. So whether it's taking care of yourself, whether it's taking care of your mate, it's all about being intentional. You know, meditating is a very intentional act. Sometimes breathing can be a very intentional act.
Yes.
You know, you have to make sure that you're thinking, okay, I'm doing this for a reason. I'm doing this because I want to feel better. And so that is taking things under your own control and plotting it and being very intentional about what you're doing for a specific reason. You know, it's intentionality followed by the effort. You know, you're being intentional in what you're doing, but you actually have to put it forward. And that's the effort. That's the effort. And then it's consistency. I always say intentionality, effort, and consistency. You know, and doing things, and consistency, doing things on regular. Write it all down. Write it all down. Intentionality, effort, and consistency. You have to do those 3 things. Otherwise, nothing's going to change. It's going to be the same thing over and over again. No, but you have to be intentional in your actions. You have to put, your actions are actually the effort, and then doing them consistently so that you know that, it's showing value for whatever it is that you're trying to do. That consistency. If you don't value it, you're not going to do it more than one or two times. No, but you have to find value in it and find a way to be consistent, be disciplined enough to keep doing it.
That's so true. And I feel like you mentioned a couple things about experiences. I feel like doing different experiences really has expanded my scope of what's possible for myself,
Right.
I think my mom was and dad very nurturing and like allow me to have so many different experiences from a very young age. But I think that's a muscle that a lot of times we want to stick to what's familiar, and that's not necessarily what's best for us.
Right.
So that's really important. And definitely this, the execution, or you say intention. I'm sorry, I missed it already.
Intentionality, effort, effort. Yes, effort. Effort is important. You have all the best intentions, but if you don't actually put the effort forward, nothing's getting done. All
Absolutely.
right. So intentionality, which means doing something very specific, the effort behind it, and then doing it consistently.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's applied to every aspect of your life is what I was trying to say. Like
Yes.
both
Yes,
personal
it is.
and relationships, and to have that clarity.
Yeah.
That is all the questions I have. Do you have anything else for us, Tyreek? Any tips, any
Any tips, gems, anything? I
pandemic we're still in? It's still rough.
Let me say, as somebody who's gotten his second shot already, go get your shots. I know we have a lot of questions in our community about, whether or not they're safe and, tired of folks experimenting on us and, passing things off. Sure. But just like the fight we've been having this entire time, this isn't always just about you. Even wearing your mask, this is about protecting other people. And my thing is, I want to make sure that my family members are as safe as possible, at least as much as I can control it.
Right.
So me going out and getting my shots, I'm actually contributing to maintaining everyone's, well-being. And so you have to think about it, think about it beyond yourself. And yeah, there are risks. There are risks. We don't know what those things are, and we may not know for a long time. But right now, this is one of those risks that you have to take. So I would encourage you, go get your shots, continue wearing your mask, continue being safe. But we've already lost 500,000 people, over 500,000 people here in this country, in the past year because of this thing. Don't do anything that's going to, contribute to more of those deaths.
And that's a great mentioning. We definitely on March 3rd, which I have not posted the flyer, but since you're here, you get it. We are hosting, we're bringing back Dr. Sherry Lee to talk to us about the vaccine. She's a virologist. She's worked with NIH. She works on, this is what she does with her life. So she's going to come to us and answer questions that we have, and it's the both end, right? We understand that they are any fear, anxiety, distrust are all valid, of course. And then there's
Right.
also like, what does normalcy in health and begin to look like moving forward, and trying to find that balance. So, but we are hosting that next Wednesday, maybe. I don't know what date. I don't know what day.
I can't remember the date either, but yeah.
But we'll do that here. So that's next week. And then we are talking. The next one with you is
Sometime in March.
Is it in March or April?
Yeah.
No. It's coming up though.
See, I put it in my schedule and I forget about it until I need to remember. That's good self-care for me. Less stress thinking about everything I have to do. It's in the calendar. I know it's in the calendar.
Write this down. Okay, but the next two are coming up with Tariq. The next one is going to be on the Black men in vulnerability. And Jay Hall is hosting that one. So
my man.
Yeah, so he's gonna lead that discussion. And I'll be, tuning in and watching with Tariq. So yeah, so that's happening later next month. And then
we think it is.
And then in April we're back again with toxic masculinity. We touched on that a bit, and we're going in depth. And Lawrence Cosby is leading that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And
got it.
So we have a lot going on. We have more in the midst that we're planning, but the ball is moving. We're still going to be safe on the inside until,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely personally signed up to get my vaccine because I'm just tired of the anxiety of, you know, everything. So that's
Yeah.
part of my personal health, and I hope that, on the other side, if there's something wrong, that they have a remedy for that too as well. So,
Right. Yeah.
um,
Let me ask you, because you're always asking me questions. Do you have any other questions? Do you have any gems you want to share with the audience? As a very experienced woman yourself, living in this cold, cruel world, what gems do you want to share with the people?
that's a great question. I'm never been asked.
Welcome to my world. Welcome to my world, Charlene. Come on, Miss Anderson. Come on, tell
I would
us.
say find things that bring you joy every day. Like one or two things. It does not have to be big. It can be very small. Sometimes when I'm just walking to get my mail outside, I like stay outside for maybe 5 or 10 minutes just to soak in the sun, especially if the sun is out, to get that fresh air. One of the things that my therapist helped me with, when there's something tedious that I am avoiding, how can I make that experience as pleasurable as possible? So for me, it's uh,
Hmm.
tea, candles, and I kind of just do it now all the time. But tea, candles, and what's the healthy incentive on the other end of that. So
Right.
those are the kind of things that I've been implementing to, I definitely was stuck last year. So when I saw a lot of these questions, like, oh, I've been through this, like, and this is stuff I
Hmm.
had to go through. And one of the things we talked about was like getting your foot stuck in the mud, like, or, falling like you're in quicksand, and like how you begin to dig yourself back up and what does that look
Hmm.
like. And really, like, all those tools that you need um, are available to you. You might not, you know, recognize them all. But if I'm feeling lonely, then I'll reach out. Like if I'm
Hmm.
feeling
Right.
um despair, I ask for help. I begin to like really communicate that more. It's like, if this is what's going on with me, these are the things you may not see if you're just basing how I'm feeling on social media,
Right.
beginning to, really have those very candid conversations, I think has been freeing for me. And then also has strengthened, a lot of my relationships in that capacity, and helping each other better support each other.
Hmm. Right.
I think a lot of times people think they just should know. I don't believe in the answer like, well, you should know what makes me happy. You should know how to know.
No.
I just don't have the
No.
capacity to think.
No.
And then, what I needed last week may be very different from what I need this week, or vice versa, and kind of just
Open
like,
your mouth and talk.
yeah.
Open your mouth and talk. You have to communicate. No one's going to understand you if you keep it all inside. People aren't going to be observant, and even if they are, it doesn't guarantee that they're seeing what you're seeing.
Mm,
See, you have to open up your mouth and say what it is that you need or what it is that you're looking for. You can't expect anybody to figure that out on their own. If you're dating a therapist, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we're observant like that. I got you. But everyone's not perfect like your therapist friends. So so what you want to do is you really want to, you want to be able to talk about that. And if you're not, ask yourself why not? Do you not feel safe in expressing what you need?
yeah.
Or are you just not, you know, do you just have unrealistic expectations of your mate?
Oh,
You know,
oh, that I don't know. Oh, that
man, you look like
that
you just
felt
got hit with
personal.
something. But yeah, those unrealistic expectations are serious. You have to make sure that you are articulating what your needs are. Don't expect anybody to figure them out. Now, if you're articulating them and they're not doing anything about it, then that's another issue to address. But you can't be mad at somebody for not knowing what you need if you never told them what you needed.
That's so true. And I think even still, I think you talk about what's realistic in your mind may not actually be realistic, or their responsibility, or their burden to bear. I think trying to figure that balance is something that how much
Mm-hmm.
should the world revolve around,
Mm-hmm. I mean, and your mate. You know your mate, and you may have these wishes and hopes and desires for your mate to be a certain thing and fulfill these certain, desires of your own, but that may not be their thing. And there has to be a certain level of acceptance. And if
Mm,
you're not willing to accept those things, then you're probably with the wrong person.
that's real.
You can't expect anybody to change. People grow. People do grow, but they grow over time. And you can't expect anybody to grow and know what you need if you don't talk to them about it. You have to give them a chance to do that.
That's so good. And I think, we talk about, well, one of the things I think I've definitely narrowed down that is vital to me is that emotional safe space, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's my must have, top of the list.
Right.
And I think once you experience that, there's like nothing can it can substitute for
Replace it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think another thing you had mentioned about, we talked about on the last live about really making sure you're loving yourself and showing you're up for yourself, because I think that attracts people who are doing the same.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think growth can happen or aging can happen, naturally, but growth has to be back to that intentionality. And if they don't have a track record of growing or evolving in their own effort, then
Mm-hmm.
if you get with them and expect that to all of a sudden to be there, it's just
You're gonna be disappointed.
you set
You're gonna be
yourself up. So
disappointed.
a track record is
Right.
what I'm trying to say, looking at, especially at this age in my life, like there should be a track record of like, what their success looks like for them.
Mm-hmm. Right. And another point, even about the expectations, I'm always telling people get rid of your expectations. Get
Oh,
rid of
all
them.
of
Just get rid of them. Get rid of them. There's a difference between having a hope and having expectations.
them?
When you have expectations, you will definitely find yourself more disappointed than not. Because you think when you have expectations in your mind, it has to be a particular way. At least if you have hope, you understand that, yeah, I want to be a particular way, but it may not work out that way. And so, yeah, you may still end up being disappointed, but will you be as disappointed as if you had an expectation for it to work out a certain way? And that it's all about the modulation. You want to be at a 10 with your disappointment, or would you rather be at a 5? Because it's going to affect you differently. So it's really about your attitude. The more expectations you have, then the likelier it is that you're going to be disappointed over and over again. Especially when it comes to interacting with other people, because again, you can't control them. You can't control them. So you may have hope that they will grow and learn and, and do things that contribute to the health of the relationship. But if you expect them to change and be what it is that you want them to be, yeah, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to be disappointed. You're going to be disappointed. You're going to be bitter. You're going to be angry. You're going to be resentful. Get rid of the expectations. Get rid of the expectations.
And I think, you talk about, definitely on that scale of disappointment, but also your response begins to change, right? So if you have the expectations and they're not met, in my experience in past lives, it has been a visceral response. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Again, you'll be on that 10.
I'll be on the 10. Like, it doesn't matter, no filter. Like, we're going straight for the jugular. Like,
Yeah.
but when it's a 3 or 4 or 5, then it's like, okay, my brain is still thinking. I still, have the best interest of this person. I'm not trying to hurt them or belittle them. It's a different perspective. So yeah, I think that's a really, really great point.
Yeah, that's all regulation. It's all about regulating and modulating. If you want to know what toxicity is, yeah, expectations is toxicity.
Woo! Dang, Tariq, that's a word though. That's a word.
Think about that one. Take that one with you.
Someone says flexibility is key.
Key.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
It is.
All right, so last call for questions.
Anybody got anything?
if that
We ain't
does
scared. Come
work.
on, ask us. Come on, give it to us. Any questions? No questions? Okay.
We'll give you about 30 seconds to see. Any other last thoughts for you, Tariq? Where they can find you? Where can they find you?
Well, they can find me, of course, on IG and Facebook. I think is it Tariq Omari or Tariq Omari Walton? It's one of those. I mean, there's not too many Tariq Omaris out there. So you put in Tariq with two eyes and Omari, you're typically gonna only find me. All right, you're not gonna find anybody else out there. Same thing on Twitter, or you can go to my website,
Do you
Tariq
tweet
Omari
though?
Walton. Say again?
Do you tweet?
I not directly. It's all just whatever I post on IG that goes to Facebook, that goes to Twitter. So it's all indirect stuff. But you can also go to my website if you want to find out more information about me, my practice, some other things I'm doing, my podcast, King of the Hearts. You can go to TariqOmariWalton.com, or you can go to my other website, viewsandvibes.com. That way, that's where you'll find my articles. You'll find old episodes of my old TV show,
Nice.
Views and Vibes, all the things I've done over the years, boy. Woo!
All
The things
things,
I've done.
uh,
I get my books, all that,
bags,
yeah, that stuff too.
leather craftsman.
Yeah, well, that's done. I ain't making no more bags, so that stuff is done. So you can go look at what used to be and dream about what you could have had. Have hope that I'll get back into it, but don't have the expectation that it'll ever happen.
That's real.
But yeah, that's where you can find me.
What about your I know a lot of therapists, a lot of Black therapists particularly are saying, they have been, pressed to like the limit of their capacity. How are you
Yeah, I'm packed. I got a waiting list. So,
Dang.
if you can find me on psychologytoday.com. But right now, yeah, I have a little waiting list. I've been maintaining a waiting list probably since September.
Wow.
Wow. I mean, people have come and gone, and so the waiting list is people come off the waiting list. But yeah, right now completely booked, and I have been completely booked for a while. So I mean, I'm fortunate. I'm very fortunate, to end this time of desperation where a lot of people aren't doing very well and finding work. I found the right career.
True, very true, and I feel like the therapists that I have talked to across the board, they're saying the same thing. That they're kind of like the nurses. They're stretched. They're working more than they usually do. They're getting the wait list. So don't be discouraged. Get on some wait lists. Know that you'll come in and definitely follow some good people. There are a lot of great therapists, and once you begin following one, you can kind of get those recommendations. Black therapy, Black Girls Through Therapy is a great follow. There's a men's. Let's talk about. I'm losing their name. But there's another podcast that talks about men's wellness that is really dope. Dang, I can't think of the name.
Right.
And then there's also the Love Land Foundation that is giving out free vouchers for mental health as well.
Okay.
And again, but a lot of those therapists on wait list. A lot of so just keep that in mind. But there's so much free information out there that may not be as specific and catered to you, but it's a good general practice that you can begin getting started on your own journey to wellness. And it's not just mental wellness; it's your entire being wellness. That journey is ongoing. So.
And even another way too to go about it, if you can't find an individual therapist or a couples therapist, look for group therapy sessions. Yeah. That way, it's a little bit cheaper sometimes, but you're also finding somebody who's reaching a larger group of people. And again, you may not get things catered directly to you, but you do have the opportunity to get some feedback in some areas, And I'll say even like with the podcast that we do, that myself and John Hart do, called Kings of the Heart. We will be getting back on air in the next few weeks, and it's really about two Black male couples therapists, and we're rare. And in the state of Maryland, there's only a few, like literally probably less than 5 of us in the entire state of Maryland.
Wow.
But we'll be talking about a lot of issues around healthy relationships and just anything dealing with relationships and love and intimacy. So you'll be able to get a lot of good information there as well.
That's really good. And can you define? Because I was having a conversation recently. I know this is personal. What's the difference? How do you define the difference between vulnerability and intimacy, or do you feel like there's a difference?
Oh, major difference. No, vulnerability is the ability just to kind of open up and express yourself. That's being vulnerable. Being able to share your thoughts and more than anything, your feelings and your emotions. That's what it means to actually be vulnerable. Intimacy itself is the bond that you develop through being vulnerable. So if you think about, being vulnerable with somebody and that helps people to understand you better, then they're going to feel closer to you because they feel trusted by you, and so that's actually helping to develop that intimate bond, and strengthen that intimate bond. So intimacy is less about opening up and more so about connecting.
And that's really good, because I think that kind of goes across our relationships. Like I can have an intimate bond with my parents and my friends. Like it's not necessarily always sexual.
It's not always romantic, right? Yeah. Intimacy is much more than just intercourse and sex. I actually, if you go on viewsandvibes.com, I have 3 articles on there, which were published in marriage.com, that address 3 different areas of intimacy outside of just physical. I have article on spiritual intimacy, another one on intellectual intimacy, and the last one was on emotional intimacy.
Wow.
And within the emotional intimacy one, I actually break down the 3 V's of emotional intimacy, which are vulnerability, which is again being able to express yourself; validation, which is being able to let somebody know what they're feeling is valid and empathizing with them; and then value. It's gonna be hard to kind of validate somebody if you don't value who they are, if you don't value what you have with them, and so though so we get into all those different things.
I'll be on those websites.
Viewsandvibes.com. Views and vibes.
The articles are published on marriage something.com.
Yeah, marriage.com. Yeah, but there's all the articles are right there on the website.
Awesome. So that's what I'll be reading tonight.
Give me a holler if you got any questions. You got my number, girl. You got my number.
I got that VIP line. All right, it's been so helpful. Just catching up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. It's always good to catch up with you. I can't wait to see it first. Look, I actually hug you. Like little Charlie, come here.
One of them long lingering hugs. Like I already feel emotion. I say everybody, there's gonna be tears and everything. Just like
I know. I haven't seen you in so long. Yeah, I can't wait for the world to open back up so we can all get back together.
I know it. So I'm hopeful for maybe the summer. Who knows? But yeah. We'll take it, day by day, and we definitely want to keep people safe. We are definitely continuing to lift up our communities who have been hit the hardest by this pandemic, and continuing to, send love and light to you all. And so we're excited. Happy Black History Month.
Yes. The final few days, man. We only got 3 days left.
We're going to take advantage. Black History 365. We believe in it.
That's right. All year.
And so check this out. We'll save this, of course. It'll be on our YouTube. It'll be on IGTV. And then, you can look for us next week. We back. And we having a Q&A about, vaccines and what that means for our communities. And it's going to be real and honest as always. So,
nice. All right. Thanks again for having me on.
Yeah, thanks so much. Y'all have a good evening. We'll see y'all soon.